Hey everybody, it's Dennis Wood here from Synovate to introduce our brand new Super Slider, our Halo product if you like, and we're calling it Horizon. So over the next few minutes, hopefully fewer than more, we're going to give you a pretty good intro of all the cool stuff that we've managed to squeeze into this little package. You may be wondering why a new slider, because we already have developed quite a few. And the reason is simple. We are always listening to feedback from customers, and this is a representation of everything that we've heard over the last 13 years or so. So what people have been asking us for is they want a heavy lift slider, they want something that's stable, but they want it to be center mountable, and they also want to be able to mount a bowl. So this is our first slider. You may remember our Atlas 200 or our Atlas 30, which could take a 100 mil or 75 millimeter bowl, but they could not be center mounted. So this is the first slider ever that can take a 100 millimeter tripod head, or tripod head with a 100 millimeter bowl, and be center mounted. So everything's kind of designed around that concept, but we've managed to introduce some really cool new tricks too. One of the great advantages of having a 100 millimeter bowl integrated right into the product is that you can, yes, you can still use your flat plate tripod head if you have one, like one of the Manfrottos, because you can mount it on our half ball. But one of the real cool things is that if you have one of the fancier tripod heads out there, or pretty much any video head that has a 100 mil or 75 mil bowl integrated, is you can actually mount it directly to the slider. So I'll have my assistant, Annalena, come on in here. Thank you very much. So this is a 100 millimeter Sachtler bowl tripod head, and of course it's going to drop right in, and now I can go ahead and level it on the slider. And one of the great things is I don't have this bowl riser in there, therefore a much lower center of gravity with my rig, therefore much better stability. So center mount, 100 mil or 75 mil bowl, and that's one of the strong features of this new slider. Now the 100 millimeter bowl can be interchanged with a 75 millimeter bowl, so if your video head happens to have a 75 mil base, you're good to go. So Annalena, my able assistant, if you could take that away. Thank you so much, you're very kind. Now, if I'd like to, I can remove this 100 millimeter bowl insert, and it's the one thing that you would need an Allen key for. And basically I'm gonna loosen off these 4 screws. I'm gonna rotate this about 10 degrees. There's actually a locking mechanism, so it can't just fall out. And I can just pop this out and put in the different inserts. So we have a number of different possibilities here, but right now, 100 mil and 75 mil are what we have. And of course, again, if you do have a video head with a flat base, you can use the 100 millimeter half ball that we sell. It's not sold with the slider, by the way. When you do buy the slider though, you will get our low profile tie down here. I'll just hold it up so you can see. And our special machine washer. We'll talk a little bit about why this thing's special and why you don't want to lose it. But these 2 bits will let you put pretty much any video head on here. Again, the half ball, if you have a flat base and you want to level it. So it's a really the next generation, if you like, of what a slider should be in terms of mounting options. Now, in order to mount your 100 millimeter tripod head, I'm just going to move this over and lock it so we can have a nice safe place to mount. You're going to have a tie down included, and also this machine, it's an anodized 6061 washer. The washer is basically designed to go in this configuration here, and it's machined on one side so that the ball can go in and be adjustable. What's kind of cool though is if you want to lock the ball in if you want to lock the ball basically to this so it's not adjustable and it's locked straight up and down, actually you can install the washer this way. And what happens, here we'll show you. We're shooting a video, right? We might as well show you. So I'm going to go ahead and put that washer on rather blind. We'll see how well this works. I'm putting it on backwards. And this particular half ball has a 3/8 thread. So when I snug this up in this fashion, what's going to happen now is the washer, because it's got a cone-shaped profile, is actually going to lock the ball so that it can't move. So you can choose that washer orientation to be either adjustable or non-adjustable, in which case this is locked to the slider as if it was a flat plate. Now that comes in real handy if you're mounting the slider to a set of sticks. and you don't want the slider to move. So we'll show you that little feature. It's kind of a cool thing. Don't lose that washer, don't lose the nut. And you may wonder, why are there two tie downs in your kit? The reason is because a lot of the tripod heads, like Manfrotto, use a 3/8 thread tie down, and which is this one. But there's also Sachtler, like the head I was putting on here previous, which uses basically an M10 by 1.5. So you'll find another knob in there. That's what it's for. It's for a head that's going on here that's going to have an M10. It looks very much like 3/8, but it's not. So be sure, if you have a Manfrotto product, you're going to want to use the proper tie down. So that's all you wanted to know about washers and tie downs. One of the real neat things about the design process here at Synovate is that we moved over to finite analysis design. So that means we design things on computers, and it means we can optimize weight and strength without actually ever having a product in our hands. So we start with that process. And one of the design goals is, how do we make a slider that can reliably carry 100, 150, you'll see in our promo videos, over 200 pounds safely. How can we make something that strong, but make it so that it only weighs 13 pounds or so? And the way we do that is with finite element analysis. So the custom aluminum extrusions are the products of that design process. And what's kind of cool about them, other than the fact that they're super stiff, the surface that the wheels ride on is actually completely hidden inboard of the rail system. And the rail itself is a few inches high. So the odds of you ever damaging the actual critical surface are just about zero. You'd have to have something that fell in and hit somewhere in the middle of this rail. So we've protected the rail surface, which means you can drop this and you can basically hit, if it fell on a pile of rocks, probably be okay, as long as one of the rocks didn't get inside of the rail and actually hit one of these critical surfaces. So one of the nice things about the rail system as well is that we have a track system that's interchangeable. So there's actually tracks here in the middle, on the top, and on the bottom. And what they allow us to do is put any number of these components on. So if you had a custom request, let's say that you wanted more support here, or you wanted multiples of the center mount portion, we can put 4 or 5 of those and they can be slid anywhere. So simply loosened, slid into position, and tightened up. And the unit's self-aligning to within 1/1000th or 2 of an inch just by doing that. So it's one of these things you could technically field disassemble this unit and put it back together, and you'd probably be good to go for accuracy. No fancy jigs. It's a self-aligning system. A lot of design. In fact, our patent covers some of those features. You may be familiar with our all-terrain legs from Doozy, but these are basically the iteration of the Doozy legs for Horizon. They're rapid stow legs, so as you can see, they're outboard here, and they provide a nice stable stance if you've got a big heavy rig. Let's say you're running an ARRI Alexa or something that has a high profile. These will stabilize, and of course they're individual adjustable. So I can basically go ahead and put a lean on the slider. This thing will probably go somewhat by itself. Actually, we need to get some weight on there to do that, but you get the idea. You can very quickly individually adjust the legs. And then we have our urethane non-marking feet. If you're just putting this on a table and you're worried about scratching it, they won't scratch. So the all-terrain legs are quickly stowable, like so. I can just basically loosen and flip over. So I don't have to take the fasteners off, and I don't have to worry about losing anything. And you can see how quickly that will come out of and back into position. I'll just go ahead and drop this back down. You can see how quick that adjusts. So that was one of the learning things with these all-terrain legs, but that makes them super quick to adjust, individually adjustable, and quick to stow. And they are included on the slider now. It's not an option, it's just part of the build. One of the really neat things about this modular design is that you can actually, let's say that you buy a 3-foot slider, you'll notice that on our catalog page, these are in 3, 4, and 5-foot increments, depending on what your needs are. But we can actually do sliders up to 12 feet. So if you have a custom visual effects shot, again, we can slide as many of these support blocks along there as we want. The belt can be up to 500 feet long. And so we can actually do a custom 12-foot slider if you needed it. Most people will end up probably at the 3-foot length because it's a nice balance, but 4 and 5 are the standards. We also have, we've learned a lot about slider wheels over the years. So these wheels, like our Doozy wheels, are individually adjustable. So you can actually adjust how much play. there is on this car in relation to the slider. We generally send it out with near zero, so there's going to be almost no movement. And when I say almost no, I mean about 1/1000 of an inch. So we're talking very, very low play, which is important. Why? Because we don't want it rocking. One of the other really important things about this slider is that we've also widened the track. So we've made the wheels basically taller. So they have it'd be the equivalent of riding on a larger diameter rail. And we've also spread the track apart. So we've managed to make this track much wider than any of our sliders to date. That means, and we know this from experience, this is going to be the most stable slider that you could ever own from Sinovate in the history of sliders made by us. So we're pretty proud of this increase in stability and the modularity, basically field adjustment, if you like, of length, should you need it. In the past, you've heard me talk about inertial dampening, which is a fancy word for basically saying flywheel. And we've taken that technology to a whole nother level here. With Hedron, for example, the flywheel was actually outboard. And one of the problems with having a flywheel on top or outboard is that it's potentially susceptible to damage from either dropping a piece of equipment, or somebody knocking over your tripod, whatever. This slider in testing has actually been subjected to some severe falls and crashes, enough to bend these legs actually, and there was never any damage to the slider itself. We just had some bent legs when it went out, and some piece of heavy gear dropped on top of it. So it's one of the cool things about having the flywheel completely encapsulated. It's basically in a cage of CNC. It's 6061 aluminum, by the way, the construction. It's anodized, so you don't have to worry about paint or powder coat chipping off. We also use stainless fasteners. It's important to mention, so if you're in a saltwater environment, you don't have to worry about rust. But you notice the flywheel now, if you remember Hedron, it was actually stainless steel and aluminum. This flywheel actually is all aluminum. It's anodized aluminum, and it's lighter in weight, but we've managed to change the way we drive it. So we're spinning it about 4 times faster than you typically see with a flywheel slider. That means that we can actually store more energy, which gives us better dampening. So as I move the camera car along, the flywheel's actually moving at about 3 or 4 to 1 ratio faster than it was before. There's another reason it's all aluminum, and that's our adjustable tension system. And there's a knob here. To add tension, basically all you're going to do is adjust this knob. And we're using our patent pending magnetic eddy current. It's just super cool technology. It's dead silent. There's no contact at all with any of the products, and there's zero wear. But one of the cool things is that we can really dramatically increase the amount of resistance, and it's also very fluidic. So this flywheel combined with the eddy current dampening makes for a really slick, silent, reliable, adjustable friction control, if you want to call it that. Really, we have the best of both worlds. We have inertial dampening, so the flywheel is moderating your shot, allowing you to do gravity drop shots. The adjustable tension is allowing you to push a little bit harder and therefore get really nice slow speed shots. Very good control without using a motor. One of the features that a lot of people have been asking for is adjustable tension control. So we've certainly made smooth, slow speed shots, particularly if you go on Instagram or you go to Google and you search Doozy 4, which has a flywheel integrated into the car, you'll see how crazy people are about that system. So having a flywheel makes a pretty big difference in how controlled and slow and how few takes that it needs now to get a great slider shot. Adjustable tension control takes it up another level. So we have a flywheel, which is basically regulating your speed, and now we can sort of make the slider, we can change the slider's configuration so it feels like you're pushing a 20 or 30 pound camera instead of a 5-pound camera, and that's going to let you really do low and slow control. It's also going to let you do gravity type shots. You can see how easy it is to adjust. You're pretty much just turning this knob, and what it does, it's a zero contact system. It uses basically the principles of eddy current braking, something you'd find on, say, a super train or one of those, actually roller coasters would use this type of technology. So we've patented the application of it on a slider, but what we can do essentially now, it's have a 100% fluidic, meaning very smooth dead silent, there's no noise whatsoever, and there's no wear parts. So nothing actually touches, there's no contact. So it's the best possible adjustable tension system that we could have come up with. We've been working on it for about a year and a half now, and it's part of the entire design with the flywheel, with the spin-up drive, and the magnetic anodized construction has to do with effective tension control. So for the first time in the history of Synovate sliders anyway, adjustable tension control, and it's certainly some of the coolest tech that we've ever introduced on a slider. One of the neat things about having these adjustable and potentially interchangeable mount blocks on this is that we can actually add more depending on what your needs are. So one of the really cool things here is that we have this block which is got 3/8 and 1/4 20 threads in it. If you were to mess up one of these threads, for one thing, it's going through 1/2 inch of anodized aluminum, so it's actually a hardened surface. If you were to mess that up, no big deal. You could remove these bolts and quickly attach a new one and slide it anywhere you want, by the way. It doesn't have to be in the middle. It can be anywhere along here if you have some asymmetric setup. Like all of our sliders, we have a 5/8 spud mount at the end with 1/4 20 threads, and also some 3/8 here in case you want to mount a ball. One of the things that I love to do, if you really want a really secure and solid tripod mount, is not to use a head at all, but use a half ball. So either put the half ball here. Well, one of the nice things is that you can put the half ball here too. And by doing that, let's say you had a really heavy rig and you have 2 sets of sticks with a 100mm ball, that is the great way to mount the slider. But if you want to stabilize with C-stands, guess what? You know, we have the machined holes and the tighteners, basically the C-stand has about nearly 3/4 of an inch of material to be supported in there. So it's a pretty solid variety of mount points for you to choose from. But you should be able to accommodate pretty much any mount solution on the planet like that. Now, one of the keys to making a Horizon a great flywheel slider, but also capable of going to motorized motion control in 30 seconds or so, is integrating a drive belt. So we have our own profile here. It's a custom belt. It's Kevlar reinforced. It's very low profile, very flexible. And what it does is it allows the flywheel drive reduction system to occur. And it also allows us to put the motion control, which we'll show you later, that's going to come on and off the slider in about 30 seconds. So no more rigging up a kit with assorted machine pieces. It's slide the motor on and you're good to go. So it's our first slider ever that has those capabilities. While I have the slider tilted up like this, these adjustable stops are, we believe, the first ever. And what they let you do, let's say you were center mounted with a very heavy rig, or you just wanted to, for the sake of your camera assistant, you wanted to basically define the movements or the range of movements. Well, with a quick adjustment, again, because we're using this track system, you can slide the stops wherever you like, and they have little urethane bumpers. Basically, you're going to come over and contact that surface, which is machined to mate exactly with the camera car. And while we're up here, you can see there's a bubble level, and our brake system, which is lifted directly from Hedron. It's one of our best brake systems ever. One of the cool things about this is that it works just like the disc brake on a car. It's a floating caliper system. It actually has brake pads, and you can see I haven't really put a lot of tightening tension on here, but the brake itself is not moving. So when the brake is tightened, it cannot move. So it's a very reliable system that makes sure that an expensive camera rig can't move when it's locked down. So let's move on to the next features. As promised, a slider that you can put a 100mm ball into and center mount at the same time. So that's of course a new thing for us, and a lot of people are asking these days about motion control. So this system here, this happens to be the Omni controller, which is a handheld controller, but we also have the Ditto Gear tablet system, which allows you to Bezier curve up to 6 axes of motion. So right now we're just doing 1 axis, but we're going to show you just how quick and easy it is. You'll see in the launch video, we did a pretty cool shot, which is a composite of a real-time push combined with a time-lapse push. And it's a pretty neat effect, not hard to do when you have a setup like this. Not only is it much lower cost than it was previous, but it's also a lot simpler to integrate. So I'm going to show you that real quick. But first of all, we are on a tripod, and you can see we have a real strong, I think this is a 528B Manfrotto tripod. It's a strong set of sticks. If you're going to be putting a 50 or 60 pound rig on here, you know, do me a favor and don't put it on your $75 set of sticks, because it's not going to work. If you're going to put a heavy rig on here, for sure, use a really good set of sticks, or add support. Either use 2 tripods. So if you use $200 tripods, I'd be a lot less worried, especially if you went in with the 100mm ball, like I showed earlier. But you could also add stability with the C-stand mounts, and very soon we'll have some auxiliary supports for the slider that will let you go from one of the tracks here down to the tripods. That's what we're working on that right now. It'll be introduced shortly. So what's really cool, now I'm center mounted, and I can put a 100mm ball in here. But motion control is now as simple as this. This motor basically, I'll show you in a second how quickly it comes off, but it basically slides in and slides off. So if I want to basically make this a manual slider, but what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and grab a 100mm head, which I have here. And what's interesting about this older Manfrotto head is it's actually a flat base head, and I've just put our 100mm half ball. So now what I got is a head that's fully adjustable on the slider. If a good example of why I'd want to do this is if I'm doing an escalator shot. So let's say that I'm using gravity to complete this shot. I may actually want to have the slider on a bit of a decline or an incline, and I can actually level my camera this way. So it's kind of cool. So the 100mm ball and washer arrangement is integral to making this all happen. We'll go ahead and throw the this particular head on, and I've got the motion control engaged right now. So I'm just going to move this over here, and I've got it dialed in. There's a couple speed adjustments here. Let's go ahead and put this on. It is possible. This head happens to have a bubble level on it as well. So I'll go ahead and just give it a, hopefully it'll look nice and level to you out there. But now I've got the bubble level, and the slider tells me I'm level, and this tells me I'm level, probably level. So the motion control system at this point, I can go ahead and do, you can see, this is just a free ride mode. But what's really cool about this particular motion control system is it can do motion capture. So you can basically replicate a series of moves that you want to repeated. It can also do slow time lapse, and it can do stop go time lapse. There's actually a trigger on the control port that will fire the camera. So if you want to move, stop, expose for 25 seconds, you've got that mode. So there's basically 4 modes, and that's just on this particular Omni controller. There's also something called a BD controller, which we'll throw a picture of in the film. It's the simplest of the controllers, and then we can go right up to 6-axis with full Bezier control and all of those features that we talked about. So it's a very comprehensive system. This is probably the system that most of you are going to end up with, the Omni controller with the motor. What I love about this is that I can very quickly disengage the system. So I can go from a motion control slider to good old friction, flywheel, all those good things, and do manual, which is going to be much simpler. So to disengage the system, we'll go ahead and unplug the system. So basically I've disconnected it, and now I'm just going to loosen these off and disengage the motor. The motor's off, it's in my hand, and I'm now back to a plain old slider. So this is how simple it's gotten. You simply basically throw the motor on here. We've got some kip fasteners. You tension it into the belt. I'm now in motion control mode. So that's how quick. And it's simple. There's not 15 different parts. So as one of our design goals is have the flywheel, have tension adjust, and have motion control that can be fully integrated in just seconds. So I'll show you these accessory mount features now, which I think is one of the really neat advantages of having this track system on the slider. The accessory mount system is just the simplest of simple. It uses a standard 1/4-20 nut that can be slid into this track, that's which we can provide. So you can mount just about any 1/4-20 accessory. So by loosening, you can slide these sorts of things. This is just a 1/4-20 fastener in there you might want to use to adjust something with a non-threaded hole, but I'll just show you with our Synovate accessory mounts, which are the coolest things in sliced bread. We can attach and also move anywhere we want. So I'm going to go ahead and just remove this clamp altogether, and you can see I can move this anywhere I want, tighten it. We just happen to have a motion controller, but this could be a monitor, it could be a piece of audio equipment, or it could be another piece of motion control equipment. So by just removing the clamp itself from the mount, I can show you real quick here. We'll just set this out of the way. I can slide this anywhere I want by just twisting, and I can move this anywhere I want on this track. Give it a twist, and it's now in its new position. Simple as that. So any quarter 20 accessory that you can dream up can be attached here. Keep in mind that Synovate sells the accessory amount, and we also sell something called grip sticks, which allow us to get more angles and more distance away from the slider. A lot of options here. That quarter 20 track I described also exists on the bottom, in the middle, and here. You won't be able to use this so much because we use that already for our adjustable stops. And here you're going to end up running into the slider. So we've got this track, and the bottom here is also free to use. So you can slide 20 different accessories on here if you really wanted to, or use it for external support, like we're going to be doing for our tripod braces. There you go. Basically Synovate's first ever center mountable 100 millimeter bowl tripod with 75 mil option. That's an overview of basically how you can get this thing running safely on a tripod. Well, there you have it. Synovate's new Horizon slider with its interchangeable rail system, modular track system, rapid engage and disengage motion control, 100 mil bowl integration, all-terrain legs, and I think one of the coolest things you'll hear about is the flywheel and the adjustable tension system. I don't think there's anything that anybody's ever asked us for that we didn't actually integrate into the slider. We worked on it for about 2 years now, and it really does integrate everything we've learned over the last 13 years or so of your input. So thank you so much for all the sharing that you're doing out there. We're looking forward to seeing what you come up with. Instagram, if you just go to Instagram and search up Synovate's channel, you'll find hundreds of great photos of how people are using our gear. Those of you who have Doozy 4 and are looking for motion control, we've got you covered. And for those of you who are looking for maybe one of the strongest sliders with some of the coolest features that we think anyway are to be found on the planet, Horizon's what you want. So thanks again for watching, and good luck out there.